RuneScape is well known for its iconic items, the music, the quests, and the locations, but most of all, the skills. And so for players, there are no more exciting times than when a new skill is released into the game. And so in this video, I will take you on a trip down memory lane as we explore the history of every time RuneScape released a new skill. As always, if you want to see more high-quality RuneScape content, make sure to subscribe. Some of the videos I have in progress that will release after Necromancy will be my biggest ones yet. When RuneScape first released on the 4th of January 2001, players were able to create a character and play together online. We take that for granted now, but in 2001 that was a huge selling point for the game. On top of this, all the progress you made would be saved onto your account, and everything you would do in the game would progress certain skills. Mine some ore and level up your mining. And everything else you could do in the game would be leveling up your character in some way. The game started out with a list of stats which were called the skills. If you're like me and you didn't play the game back in this time, you might be confused when you look closely at the list of the skills. Some of the skills have names that would change later down the line, and some of the skills would be removed completely. For example, hits would later become hit points and even later constitution. Magic and prayer were still split up into evil and good variants back in this time. And on top of that, a bunch of these skills in this list weren't even able to be trained at all. These included herb law, crafting, thieving, influence, and tailoring. Some of these would become real skills later down the line, but some of these would just be removed entirely. So clearly the game launched without having fleshed out all of its skills. But luckily, a ton of updates would be coming all throughout the years which would flesh out all the skills and provide a ton more content. And so 4 months after the release of the game, the first step to making these skills more fleshed out would happen when crafting would really be released into the game. Looking back now, it is funny to see how this new skill was introduced to the players. Unlike now, when we get a ton of marketing and news posts related to the new skill, there was no lead up to the first new skill release at all. In fact, it was not even at the top of the news post. Just 2 short weeks later, we would see the next change to the skill list. And that would be to combine the evil prayer with the good prayer skill to simplify the system with a single prayer skill. The same exact thing would happen to magic on the same day. Continuing the trend of fast iterations over the skill list, only 18 days later on the 11th of June, fishing would be released. This was the first time a brand new skill was added to the list, and it was beloved by players as it completely transformed the way that players could access food. Up until this point, it was incredibly tedious to collect meat from monsters to turn into food. Later, in August of 2001, Everdred made history as he became the first player to achieve 99 woodcutting, becoming the first player to ever reach the max level in a single skill. On the 27th of February 2002, Herblore would release, allowing the players to create potions to buff themselves in combat. Only 1 short month later, on the 25th of March, Fletching would release into the game, allowing players to create ranged equipment and weaponry. Keeping up with the rapid pace of skill updates, on the 30th of April, once again just 1 month later, thieving would become trainable for the first time. As thieving was in the skill list from the very beginning of the game, people had plenty of time to speculate what the skill would be like. Many players had hoped that they would be able to steal items from other players, so they were disappointed to realize that you could only steal from NPCs to get some random items. Because thieving was the only remaining skill on the original skill list to get implemented, this could have been the first time all of the skills on the skill list would be trainable. But in the very same update, RuneScape added a new skill to the skill list named Carpentry, a skill which once again could not be trained in the game. And it never would be able to be trained as it would be removed alongside the next skill's release. On the 12th of December later that year, around Christmas time, Jagex had once again prepared a new skill for the community. And what a Christmas present it was. The new skill would be known as Agility. Little did Jagex know that this skill would become and remain one of the most infamous skills they had ever released. The skill would require you to run laps in incredibly repetitive courses and boasted one of the lowest XP rates out of any skill, making it one of the more frustrating skills to train up. Luckily, players had plenty of time to train it, because after Agility, the wait for the next skill would be the longest one yet. A full year went by and there was still no new skill in sight. Players were beginning to wonder if they would ever see one, and at this point, they wanted something big. Little did they know that Jagex was working on a very special update which would be bigger than any of them could have hoped for, as RuneScape was about to enter its golden age. Out with the old and in with the new. On 20th of March 2004, RuneScape got its biggest update yet, which would be known as RuneScape 2. The entire game was graphically updated, creating new models and replacing the old 2D sprite assets. Players were able to transfer all their progress from RuneScape Classic onto the new version of the game. And with all this change, of course, a brand new skill arrived right alongside it. The newest skill was rune crafting. You could already make melee weapons using smithing and ranged ammo and weapons using fletching. Runes used in magic could only be obtained from shops or as drops from monsters. So rune crafting brought a much needed way for players to create their own runes to use when training magic. The skill was extremely hard and slow to level up, making it one of the most prestigious skills to have a high level in. On the 26th of January 2005, Slayer would be introduced into the game, bringing variety to combat training. 6 months later, a player would be the first to hit 99 Slayer. That player had been a high level player for a while, and they would go on to become the most recognizable RuneScape player ever. I am of course talking about Zezima. This particular 99 was extremely notable because not only was Zezima the first to get 99 in this brand new skill, but when doing so, he also became the first person to ever achieve level 99 in every single skill in the game. As time went on, more and more players would achieve this goal, completely transforming the way higher level players approached the new skill releases. Now it was also about being the first person to get the new max total level. Interestingly, right as the race for the new skills started to heat up more than ever, the following skill would be the hardest to race to 99. Farming would release on the 11th of July 2005 and allowed players to plant trees, herbs and other produce. Unlike other skills, you can't just put in more effort and time to level up faster. Instead, you have to wait for everything you planted to grow before you can gain XP and begin the cycle over again. When the skill released, nobody really knew how this all worked, so some players were just sitting and waiting at their farming patches, trying everything they could to make the plants grow quicker. Of course, now we know you just have to wait for them to grow over time. On the very first day of the new year, the next big barrier would be broken by a player. You see, to get level 99 in a skill, you require a little over 13 million experience points in that given skill. Once you get the max level, you can no longer level up or unlock any new content past that point. You can still gain more experience, which can be seen on your account or on the high scores as well. So when XXX Neo XXX7 trained his fletching skill all the way to 200 million XP, he was surprised to see that that was the maximum amount of experience you could gain in a single skill. He was the first player to discover that there was even a maximum in the first place. This discovery once again transformed the race for high scores for high level players, because if you are the first to get 200 million experience in a skill, you also become rank 1 in that skill and lock in your position on the high scores forever. As nobody can ever get over 200 million experience, as long as you're the first to get there, no one will ever be able to take your rank 1 position. Remember the carpentry skill that was added into the skill list in RuneScape Classic for a short while? Well, it turns out that some of those IDs would finally make their way into the game as a new skill, under a new name this time: Construction. Construction allowed players to create their own houses with tons of benefits, and could invite players to their houses. As people love to celebrate when players get a 99, a ton of players gathered in the house of a player by the name of Cursed You, as he was about to be the first to get 99 in construction. Because too many people joined his house, he had to start kicking players from his house. Due to a bug, this would result in the Falador massacre, where some players, notably Duriel321, were able to attack and PK anyone in the overworld without them being able to fight back at all. October of 2006 would bring yet another huge update to the game for skills, allowing players to obtain what are probably the most iconic non-tradable RuneScape items ever, the skill capes. The update was simple. Each skill would get a new cape to represent them, and if you obtained level 99 in a skill, you would be able to wear that cape and showcase your achievement to everyone around. You would also gain access to a special skill cape amount when wearing the cape. This update was beloved by the entire community. Players who achieved the capes loved the recognition they got by wearing them. Additionally, they served as a great motivator for players who were still on their way to their first cape. From this point on, whenever a new skill released, people were looking forward to seeing the first players with the new capes in the game, and would often ask them to showcase the capes emote when they saw them in the game for the first time. On the 21st of November 2006, Hunter would release, being a skill that allows you to set traps and capture wild animals throughout the world. With it being the first new skill released after the skill capes, people were very excited to see what a new cape would look like in-game. If you are an old school player, then you might know that Hunter is the final skill in the old school RuneScape skill list. However, the main game never really stopped adding more throughout the years. So on the 15th of January, Jagex would bring yet another skill revolving around creatures, being summoning. Summoning allowed you to summon creatures that would follow you around the game like a pet. These familiars would then provide you buffs, effects and other benefits throughout the game. This would start a trend that all future skills seem to be following, which is that the new skill has rewards that impact all the other existing skills in the game. In April of 2010, Dungeoneering would release into the game. This skill was the first skill to go all the way up to level 120 instead of maxing out at level 99 like all the other skills. Reaching 99 would still allow you to get the cape, but now there would be a new level 120 cape for Dungeoneering. About a year later, two new capes were added to the game: the Max Cape and the Completionist Cape. The Max Cape would require you to get level 99 in every single skill in the game, while the Completionist Cape, among other requirements, would require you to get level 120 in a skill if that skill went to 120. As players started to obtain these capes, new skill releases would once again change forever. From this point on, anytime a new skill released, players who obtained these capes would lose them. This resulted in players scrambling to race to the top so they could get their beloved capes back. Sometime after the release of Dungeoneering, the final barrier would be broken on the RuneScape skill high scores, as Suomi would be the first to get 200 million XP in every single skill in the game, securing his position as rank 1. This would bring us to the current era of competition. As more players started to achieve 200 mil in every single skill, the competition for new skills would be bigger than ever, because at this point, all of those players would race to be the first to get 200 million in the new skill and securing their position as rank 1 on the high scores until another skill would release. Ever since the release of RuneScape 2, skill releases really slowed down compared to their release cadence in Classic. But even for the standard set in RuneScape 2, the wait for the next skill would be the longest one ever. This long wait, however, came with yet another big shift in RuneScape's history. RuneScape once again took a graphical leap and would now be known as RuneScape 3. Along with this would release the first world event, which would see Zamorak and Saradomin battle each other near Lumbridge. A few weeks later, when the battle for Lumbridge came to an end, a giant crater was left on the surface right behind Lumbridge Castle, and along with it, RuneScape 3's first new skill released, Divination. Divination would allow you to siphon energy from craters that spawned all throughout the world, and use this energy to transform items, create new ones, and all kinds of buffs and effects. From this point on, it was expected that there would be years between skill releases, so 2 years later, Invention would release and would become one of the most impactful skills in the game. Invention was RuneScape's first and to this day the only elite skill ever released. An elite skill would require 3 other skills to be level 80 before you could even start training it. For Invention, those skills were crafting, smithing, and divination. Invention's launch wasn't the smoothest. For example, the XP gained from creating perks was not balanced at all and resulted in the first 99 happening only a day after the release of the skill, and 120 the second day after the skill. But once those things started to get smoothed out and further updates, the skill went on to do a lot for the game. It tied in well with divination, making its role in the game much more useful and more impactful for players who criticized divination for being a somewhat useless new gathering skill. Invention also gave new value and training methods to every other skill in the game, by allowing you to create perks that allow you to change up your playstyle or give new buffs or perks for every other skill that you can train. On top of that, it also gave a ton of new life to old PVM content that was slowly getting devalued by items they dropped no longer being as useful. Now every item in the game can be broken down for components, and a lot of the boss drops that are no longer as useful would now give strong Invention components that could be used for strong perks. After the release of Invention, Jagex would go on to experiment with making existing skills that went up to level 99 go up to 120 and providing new content for existing skills all the way up to the new level cap. Slayer, being one of the most popular skills for high level players, was the first to receive this level 120 treatment. At launch though, players were disappointed with the amount of new Slayer monsters introduced into the game, as all the new creatures were different versions of corrupted or Ag creatures. And all these new monsters resided in the same dungeon, while Slayer was beloved for its variety it brought to combat. Luckily, of course, in the years since this launch, the skill has received plenty of new Slayer creatures that populate the levels between 99 and 120. After this, we would see the same thing happen to Herblore and Farming, both going up to level 120 together in a single update, giving players access to a ranch where they could breed dinosaurs and turn the supplies they earned from them into the new strongest potions in the game. On the 30th of March, Archaeology would release. Archaeology is cited by many of the players to be the best skill release ever. To this day, it holds the spot as the favorite skill of many players. It offered a compelling level curve, with new content all throughout the levels, with some of the best rewards tying in with summoning to allow you to summon new demon creatures, and tying in with Invention to straight up give you stronger versions of all the perks you got from Invention. On top of that, it also provided strong powers for all other skills and aspects of the game through the new relic power system. Archaeology was the first and only skill that I personally also raised to 200 million XP. It was a very fun experience to me, and I was able to get in the top 100 Iron Man accounts, coming in at rank 86 for the skill. And that brings us to today. We are only a few days away from Necromancy releasing into the game. Necromancy will be a completely new combat style, releasing alongside multiple quests and 2 brand new bosses, with plenty more Necromancy content releasing after the skill's initial release. On top of this, the team working on Necromancy largely is similar to the team who worked on Archaeology. So if they can build on the success that was Archaeology, Necromancy is shaping up to be an amazing skill release. And with over 3,000 top players currently having reached 200 million XP in every single skill, the race for rank 1 has more participants than ever before. I, for one, can't wait to see how the community approaches this one. Personally, I will not be racing Necromancy as much as I did Archaeology a few years ago. Instead, I will try to balance getting to 99 and 120 reasonably quickly and doing the bosses and creating amazing videos for you guys. So make sure to subscribe. If you liked any of my past boss videos, you will not want to miss the Necromancy ones. I will also likely be live streaming some of my progress, so if you want updates on the streams, go to my Discord server or my Twitter account. With that, I want to give a huge shout out to my channel members, and I also want to thank you for watching this video. This video is something new from what I usually do, and after working on it for so long, I'm really starting to second guess if it's even any good. So please do give me your honest feedback in the comments and tell me if this type of video is something you would like to see again at some point in the future.